We're really at a crossroads. Technology is just exploding. It's moving at this breathtaking pace, and it's forcing us to ask a question that's, it's as old as time, but somehow more urgent than ever.
What does it really mean to be human? You'd think that would be a simple question, right? But honestly, the answers we used to take for granted are being tested every single day.
I mean, think about it. When a computer can have a conversation that feels totally real, when we can literally clone a living being, or when our bodies can be upgraded with technology, that line, the one that defines what human is, it gets really blurry. It's like a modern identity crisis. So, where in the world do we look for an answer?
Well, for this explainer, we're actually going to turn to an ancient text, one that offers this really profound and, you'll see, surprisingly relevant way of understanding who we are. It's a concept known as the Imago Dei. It all starts right here with this one single verse from the book of Genesis, and it makes this absolutely staggering claim that humanity, unlike anything else in all of creation, was made in the very image and likeness of God himself. And that brings us to the core idea we're unpacking today, Imago Dei. It's just Latin for image of God, and it's all about this unique divine stamp on humanity. But what does that actually mean? What is this image made of? So, how do we even begin to wrap our heads around an idea that big? Well, over the centuries, scholars have basically broken it down into four main facets. They all overlap and connect, but looking at them one by one really helps make sense of it all. So, we're going to look at the moral and spiritual side, the deeply relational part, our unique job of ruling and having dominion, and then a fourth one that might actually surprise you, physical resemblance. Let's start with what's going on inside us. First up, we've got the moral and spiritual aspect. This is all about those invisible qualities that, really make us who we are.
And this is a huge distinction. See, an animal, it acts on instinct, but it's amoral. It doesn't operate with a sense of right or wrong. But humans, we are created as moral beings. We have this internal compass, this capacity to want justice, to create art, to choose what's right over what's wrong. This capacity is the bedrock of our laws, our ethics, our entire civilization. And that innate moral capacity, it leads us right into this second facet, which is actually hinted at in the way that Genesis verse is worded. Did you catch the plural language? Let us make man in our image. The text suggests that God himself is inherently relational, and us. So if we're made in that image, it means we are fundamentally relational beings. We are just hardwired for community. We're born into families, we make friends, we build entire cities. Our whole existence is shaped by us, not just I. The third facet, now this one shifts from who we are on the inside to what we're actually meant to do. This is all about our purpose, our function here in the world. So the idea here is that God, as the great king of everything, appointed humanity to act as his representatives here on earth. They're sometimes called vice-regents. We're meant to take care of creation, to cultivate it, to help it flourish, and to rule over it with wisdom and justice, all on behalf of the king. And there's this brilliant analogy to help this click. Picture this. In the ancient world, when a king conquered a new land, he'd put up a statue, an image of himself, to basically declare to everyone, without saying a word, this land is mine. I rule here now. According to this view, humanity is that living, breathing statue. Which brings us to our final and maybe the most debated aspect of the image. It takes that whole statue analogy and takes it one very literal step further. Now, I know this might sound like a stretch, but it's actually rooted in the original Hebrew language. The words used for image and likeness were almost always physical terms in ancient texts, often referring to a carved idol or, you guessed it, a statue. The suggestion is that we don't just represent God's rule with what we do, but that our physical human form was itself designed to be God's tangible, physical presence on this planet. So, okay, we've got these four incredible facets that, from this perspective, define what it means to be human. But how does any of this ancient stuff apply to our modern lives? Yeah, what is the real-world takeaway? Why does this idea of the Imago Dei actually matter when you're going about your day-to-day life? Okay, first, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The source material is really clear that while our human brokenness might have damaged or marred this image, it has not been erased. It's never completely lost. And that leads to this powerful, totally unavoidable conclusion. This divine imprint, it isn't just for some people, it's for everyone. The person you agree with, the person you can't stand, your friend, the stranger on the bus, even your enemy. Every single human being you ever meet carries this image.
And here it is. Here's the profound implication. If every person is a living, breathing representation of God on earth, well, that completely changes the game. It demands that we treat one another with a baseline of honor, respect, and dignity. No exceptions.
So you see, this isn't just some dusty, abstract theological idea. It's a lens. It's a way to see the world differently. So the question I want to leave you with is a personal one. In a world that is so often telling us to be divided, who will you make an effort to see the image of God in today?